All right, can everyone hear me okay? Good? Okay, perfect. Oh, we lost me. Good? Okay. Welcome to the Fraud Awareness Seminar. Too loud?
Yeah.
A little too loud. Is that better? Good, perfect. If you can't see the screen, that's okay. We gave you the presentation in your folders. So I'm just gonna go through that really quick. Oh, I'm Leslie. I'm one of the managers at TLC. This is Lori and Shannon, and they work in our security and compliance department. So in your little packet here, we do have a copy of the presentation. We have the identity theft recovery booklet here, the big one. In there is going to have the phone numbers and addresses for all 3 credit bureaus in the event that your identity has been compromised. It'll kind of walk you through how to recover that. It'll give you those steps. The trifold here is how to avoid a scam, so it'll just give you some basics. And then the bookmark-sized handout here is about gift card scams. So those are still very popular, especially with the holidays coming up. You'll be contacted to either buy gift cards or things like that. So the scammers always like to target this area, and we'll kind of touch on that more in the presentation. So the first thing that we're going to kind of touch on is current scams in our area. And you can see here that one of the new tactics that scammers are using is they're using technology to their advantage. They're using what's called artificial intelligence to not only mask their voice, change what their voice sounds like, but they're also using it to change what their face looks like in pictures and videos. And I'll have a little video clip that I can show you in a little bit on kind of how they're doing that. It looks very, very convincing, so I just wanted to make sure that I pointed out that's a thing now. That, you know, technology is advancing so quickly that it's hard to keep up on what these scammers are doing. The next thing that we're gonna touch on is those phone-related scams. It's gonna be those robocalls, the texts, the impersonators, the phone number spoofing, and the password bots. The one I really wanna talk about is the phone number spoofing. That's hit almost every financial institution really, really hard in the last year. What they're doing is you're receiving a call, and it looks like TLC is calling you. Or it looks like another financial institution is calling you, or it looks like a legitimate number is calling you. And they're trying to convince you that there's something wrong with your account, or you have some charges that they need you to verify. So they always try to get that sense of urgency. They always try to make it seem like this is a very legitimate call. I need to help you fix this right now. So what they've done is they've convinced you that they're us. And then a lot of times they convince you to give your online banking credentials. That's kind of their end game, is how they're going to take money from you. So you'll give them your username and password, you'll give them the code, and they get in and they immediately start sending funds out of your account using various methods. So whenever you get a phone call from somebody you're not expecting, even if it is your financial institution, hang up, call them back. That way you know you're calling the right place. You're talking to the legitimate company that called you. It's one of my favorite things in my department. I work in the e-branch, so it's everything electronic, online banking, things like that. I love when I call someone and they say, I don't believe you. I'm going to call you back. And they do. It's my favorite thing in the world. I promise we're not going to be offended. One of the various ways that they're using to get money out of your account is by using Zelle. Zelle is an online person-to-person transfer platform. We do have an integration with Zelle right in our online banking. It's a lot like Venmo and Cash App. Now the dangers of this is once the funds are gone, I can't get them back for you. They're treated like cash. So it would be the same as me. Are you handing me a $20 bill? Me running away. Now you gotta chase me for it. So the danger with this is, like I said, it's built right into our platform, and the only thing that they need to send money from your account is your full password, which if they spoofed our phone number, you might have provided. So we love Zelle when it's used correctly. So I had a few members, we did a fraud seminar at the Denny Senior Center, and I had a few people come up and say, so Zelle's not safe? No, it is, when it's used properly. My department, so one person buys lunch, we Zelle each other money. So you only want to send and receive from people that you know and trust, and you really know it's them. The other thing that they're doing is they're using cryptocurrency ATMs. Now, cryptocurrency is kind of like digital money. So there's a few local ATMs around. There's a couple here in Adrian, where they're going to try to ask you to go and put real cash in or put your debit card in to purchase cryptocurrency. Same thing with Zelle. Once it's gone, we can't get it back. It's treated like cash. So you're essentially turning your money, your physical money, into digital money and sending it to someone else's digital wallet. They're collecting it, and it's so hidden through electronic channels that we'll never find who it was sent to. So always be leery about that. As I mentioned before, the gift card scams. So this is where they're having you go and buy gift cards and read them the card number. I know it's going to seem really silly, but we've heard of people who are being contacted by the FBI, by the IRS, by the local electric company, by the police department, and being told, you owe us, whomever, money. I need you to go to Lowe's, and I need you to buy a gift card. This is how you're going to pay your fine. This is how you're going to pay your taxes. Now, when you use your logical brain, you know that doesn't make sense, right? But what they have on their side is they create the sense of panic in you. They tell you it needs done right now. The FBI is coming. We need you to pay us right now. Officers are on their way. So they create that urgency, and your emotional brain starts to take over, and you want to do everything you can because this law officer told you to. So my biggest piece of advice is stop, think, does this make sense? And then the last part is online shopping scams. We see it a lot with Facebook Marketplace and venues like that. What'll happen is you'll be selling a knick-knack you no longer need. I had a member of ours who was selling a wedding dress, her daughter's wedding dress for her. Or you're buying that cute little puppy online. You're seeing that it's for sale. You're sending this person money because they said that they need to accept the deposit to hold the dog. And unfortunately, it was a fake profile. Or somebody wants to buy your item. They tell you, I can only send Zelle. I'm out of town. My son's going to pick it up from you. But I'm going to pay you through Zelle. I know that your bank has it. So the funny thing with Zelle is they have a website that lists every single financial institution that they do business with. So if you by chance say, oh, I don't even know if my bank has it. I bank with this little credit union called TLC. You just told the scammer that we do have it because they can verify that information on the website. So my member who was selling her daughter's wedding dress decided to accept the payment using Zelle. The scammer sent the money, but told her, oh, it didn't go through. That's really weird. You should check your email. So my member checked her email, had an email from Zelle@gmail.com that said, in order to release the $500 that so-and-so had sent her, she needed to pay Zelle to upgrade her account to a business account. So my member, unfortunately, sent the $300 to upgrade her account, and it was gone. So those are some things to be aware of. Online is very safe when used properly. Zelle is very safe when used properly, but there are so many dangers out there that once we figure out what the fraudulent scammers are doing, all we can do is educate and try to move on from it. Does anybody have any questions before I go on? Yes?
Just a comment on the phone number spoofing. I'm assuming that you don't want to return the call. You say, well, I'll call TLC to see if they call.
Yeah.
If you happen to hit a button on your phone that says just redial the last number.
That's correct.
Unfortunately, it's going to go to the spoofer. It's not going to go to TLC.
That's absolutely correct.
Right. So I'm assuming the best thing is use maybe a different phone and then look up the number yourself and call directly.
Absolutely. Absolutely, because what they were doing is they were spoofing our call center phone number, our 517-263-9120. That does come up and say TLC Credit Union, that a lot of people have stored in their phone. So you're absolutely right. Completely end that call, don't hit redial, give it some time, and then you can call us back. Or stop it. We're always, available in branch as well. Anyone else? Yeah.
On the spoofing, I kept getting this phone call from a man, and he said, I'm not calling you, so I knew it was spoofed. And he was getting really irate.
Yeah.
And then he called me a few days later. They had spoofed his number to himself.
Yes, they've done that to me. Yeah. And he had no idea, did he? Did you guys hear what happened? So she was receiving a phone call from a gentleman, and the gentleman you were calling the number back?
Yes.
So she was returning the call because she had missed a call. And the gentleman on the other end said, I didn't call you, and was getting very angry. So what happened, she found out later on, he called her and said that the scammers had spoofed his phone number and actually called him using his own phone number. That's how he found out. Yep, so they're not just doing it to businesses, they're using any phone number. Okay, so this is artificial intelligence. This is when they're using a computer program to alter something about themselves, so right now there's a thing called ChatGPT. What that is you can literally type in a text box on the internet and say, write me a paragraph about the color purple. I don't know. write me something. And the artificial intelligence, the robot, will write you an entire paragraph about the color purple. My boyfriend thinks he's really funny, and in what I work in, I know about this kind of stuff. So he said, write my girlfriend a love letter. I know what he really types. I know what he really sounds like. So when I get a 6-paragraph love letter from my boyfriend, he had used ChatGPT. So there's some fun ways. I know that a lot of companies are using it for marketing slogans or to write Facebook ads for their businesses. So there's a great thing about artificial intelligence until you put it in the hands of the wrong person. So what you can see here is, I'm going to play this video, but I want to explain first. You can see that this gentleman is in a relationship with this very nice lady that has been blurred out to protect her. Unfortunately, this gentleman is who she's really talking to. So he has used artificial intelligence to not only mask his voice, but completely change what he looks like. So this is the image that she's seeing. And when I play the video, if you look really closely up here in the corner, you can actually see the scammer recording to advertise his services to other people. Yeah, there's no audio, unfortunately, I'm sorry. But you can see his mouth moving. So she's really convinced that this is who she's speaking to on like FaceTime or a video chat. So we've had situations where unfortunately I've had to be the bearer of bad news and tell our members that the person that they're dating online probably isn't who they say they are because of things like this. So, just a general story. This gentleman has probably told her that he's in the Army or in some type of service, and he's stationed overseas, and he can't get home. They have his funds tied up, and he needs her to send money to his sister to help pay for a lawyer to get him home. Or this gentleman is in the service overseas and needs her to send money to his babysitter who has kept his children while he's stationed overseas. These are all stories I've heard. All of our members have sent these funds and they've lost their money because they've sent it through these cash transaction programs. We used to tell people, if you meet someone online, video chat them. They can't fake that. Now they can. So you need to be very, very careful, and please warn everyone you hear, or everyone you know, to be very, very careful when it comes to talking to people online now. It used to be a warning that they told you about when the internet first started, because you couldn't prove who they were. Then there was a period where you could, and now we're back to you can never trust what you see. Does anyone have any questions about this? Yes?
I read recently that there was an arm, I don't know about the arm of ChatGPT being hacked.
Yes.
Now, does that create a whole different set of issues besides just the
The
video
fun, yeah.
manipulating?
Yeah, so with ChatGPT, it's more about writing things, but there are sections of it where people are charging you to use it. ChatGPT is free. So if you've put in your information, there's a chance if it's hacked, they've now gotten your credit card information, your name, phone number, email, whatever you've given to that particular place on the internet. Yes. Anyone else? All right. So phone-related scams. Again, this kind of goes back to the spoofing. A lot of financial institutions are being hit with this one as well. The first one that we noticed at TLC was this one. Oh, no, I'm sorry, was this one. So our members were receiving a text message from a local phone number. It's a 517 phone number. It is not TLC's phone number, but it is a local phone number, saying, TLCCU, did you use your debit card ending in, and it had 4 numbers, at, and then it would list a store, saying that the transaction was declined, and then if you recognize this activity, reply yes. If not, reply no. So our members are recognizing, no, I was not in Charlotte, North Carolina, shopping at Target. I'm in Adrian, Michigan at Walmart. They were replying no. The scammer knew that they had somebody on the hook. The phone immediately rang with their spoofed phone number. They were convincing members that they had fraud on their account and that TLC needed to get into their online banking to immediately stop all of this activity. So unfortunately, credentials were given away, codes were given away, and money was sent out by other methods. Now, I mentioned that this was the way it started. Well, we noticed that it started evolving because now the scammers weren't asking for your username and password after a certain period of time because they know that that's what we're warning our members of. They were just giving them new credentials. They gave them a new username to put in and a new password to put in because they didn't need the old one anymore. They gave you what to put. So that was their new tactic. Recently, within the last 3 weeks, members got this text message. It says, TLC Community CU, your mobile number has been removed. If not you, visit http://my@tlccommunity.pages.dev to cancel. When you clicked on this link, it pulled up a website on your phone or your computer, probably your phone because it was a text, right? So it pulled up a website that mirrored our login page. So they actually used our page to create a page that looked just like us. Members would put in their username and password because they didn't change their phone number. They wanted to cancel whatever action had happened. The page would proceed. It would say it was texting you a code, which it did. They put their code in and then hit continue and the website would crash. What we found was happening was the scammer was on the other end of this website. When they saw you typing in your username and password, they had a keystroke logger, meaning that they could see everything you typed. They were on a real website typing right along with you. They're the ones that triggered the code to come to you. You typed it in because that's how you log into online banking. They saw you type the code in, they had access. It took us a little while to figure that out because every member said, I didn't give anybody anything. They didn't. We just found that they had mirrored our page and they were obtaining the information themselves. Same thing happened. Money was trying to be sent out using Zelle, but we've gotten a little smarter in the time that we've been doing Zelle. We've implemented some rules in place that stopped a lot of it. So a lot of it triggered as fraudulent activity, and we only had 2 members that were out money out of the 20 or so that fell for this. So we're trying, and I feel like we're one step behind, but we're really trying to catch up with them. So again, just as I said about the AI, warn everyone. We would never have you go to a website. We would never text you. We do text you, but we would never text you and then immediately call you and ask for credentials. We don't need that. There's no place on our system that I need to put that to see your account. We have a different software. Yeah.
If you suspect it's a scam, what would happen if you'd answer yes to the original question?
They called you.
They would still.
Same thing. Yep. They called you and they said that they needed to get you logged in so they could get your card turned back on instead of turned off. They just reversed what they were saying.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you mentioned that TLC would text us. What kind of text would we receive?
It would look very similar. Yep, so that's our Falcon network. So Falcon's our after-hours fraud detection center, and they do monitor transactions, but they tend to call first. But I have gotten text messages, but they would never call you afterwards. And they would especially never ask for your username or password.
So if we have a text like that, how are we to know that that's fraudulent?
So you could answer it, and then if they called, depending on what they were asking you at that point, that's how you would know. The Falcon network can't even see our system, so they would never need that information either.
So do we just hang up then?
I would, absolutely, absolutely. Yes,
Because I've had my debit card hacked 3 times in a row.
sure.
And I think it was that Falcon that you talked about,
Mm-hmm.
that they called and asked me if I recognized this one transaction.
Sure.
And I responded no, and so then they said, well, your card has been canceled, but they say to go into the credit union.
Absolutely.
So then I know for sure.
Yep. Yep. If you say no, usually what they'll do is they'll read you 5 transactions and have you verify the latest 5 transactions on your account. They don't have access to our systems, so all they can do is shut your card down, but they can't order you a new one. So my card services department would have contacted you the next morning. Yep.
Yeah, so if I received that text message, could I just not respond and call your department?
Absolutely.
Okay.
The back of your card has a 1-800 phone number. I would call them.
And so if that was legitimate, let's say that was legitimate, is that a text message that I would receive after hours? Or would I receive it during business hours if it was legitimate?
Both.
So.
Falcon runs 24 hours.
Okay, wow.
Yeah, I will tell you that I went to Disney and forgot to put a travel notice on my debit card. I got a call from Falcon. So,
Okay.
because I was doing transactions outside of our geographic area.
So I hand over here, I think. Maybe not. Yes.
In talking to a couple friends of mine, maybe 2 years ago, about the difference between debit and credit cards. Police officers say it's a lot easier to scam a debit card than it is a credit card.
Absolutely.
So why do you issue debit cards?
Great question. I always advise that you run it as credit no matter what, because credit doesn't have you put in that 4-digit PIN number. Go to our ATM if you need to use debit. That would be the only way I personally would use my debit card as a debit is at our ATM. I always run my card as credit.
Correct.
Yes.
So if you're traveling somewhere like out west and you're using your debit card or credit card at a gas station pump, they have card readers there.
Yep.
You're better off to use a credit card than a debit
Absolutely. Or pay inside.
or pay
Because
inside.
skimmers on pumps and payment, what am I looking for? Like where you swipe your card or insert your card?
Mhm.
Those are still a thing. So they put a little device on where you insert your card on a pump
Mhm.
that is able to use your mag strip, that black strip at the top of your card, and they read your information as it goes in and comes out.
So even
That's
if-
why the debit portion is dangerous. Because if we see that it was a mag strip, there's a chance that it could have been a skimmer that got that information. But if you use and we see it as chip read, we know that the actual card was used in that transaction.
So even if it is a skimmer, if
Mhm.
you use a Visa card or a charge card, you're better off. I mean, they can't hack that, right?
They can, but you're not responsible for it during the whole dispute process.
Okay.
So with a debit card, it's immediately taken from your checking account. With a credit card, you're not responsible while we're investigating it, so you're not out any funds. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
Yes,
Would it be safe to tap it?
yes, because it's that chip. I actually was in one of our development companies had a payment seminar today that I was on. And I've heard that MasterCard, we don't use MasterCard, we use Visa. MasterCard is getting rid of mag strips on all of their cards within the next 10 years. No MasterCard's gonna have a mag strip anymore. So it's gonna reduce that fraud. Everything's gonna have a chip or tap.
But typically Visa follows what MasterCard is doing, so.
Yep, it just hasn't been announced yet.
Yeah. Sure, I'm gonna give Leslie a little break. You guys are gonna get to listen to me. So things to remember, we're never gonna text you and ask you for your social security number, any of your login information, username, password, your security passcode, or any other private information. Some of the things that Leslie touched on was that our members were getting the spoofing calls, and one of the things that they were asking for was their 4-digit multi-factor authentication code. We're never going to ask you for that because we don't need it on our end. We have no place to enter that information, and that was the biggest probably problem that we were seeing with anybody that was getting scammed and it being giving access to their account. If anyone does call and they start asking you those questions, anytime that you get questions that you're uncomfortable with, we can't stress this enough, give us a call. We love those conversations. And I tell people all the time, they're like, I'm really sorry to bother you. I've called you, 3 times in the last month. I would much rather talk to you before something happens than to talk to you after and tell you that, depending on what happened, that I can't help you. One of the things that we noticed, and I was going to interject when Leslie was talking earlier, if you get one of the scammers calling you, again, they try to make it a sense of urgency. They put you into a panic. And a lot of times they tell you not to hang up. They'll tell you to stay on the phone. Just hang up. And then if you see the call coming back in, don't answer it. We have intercepted those calls sometimes. We'll have members come up to the desk. We have some tellers that are very good at reading the members' body language, and they'll ask questions. Why are you here withdrawing that kind of money? You don't normally do this. And it's not because we're being nosy. If people are asking you about your transactions, it's not to be nosy. It's we're trying to protect you because we see these things. And then they can tell, the teller will be able to tell that you're talking to someone on your cell. And that person is usually trying to coach you or tell you what to do. Just hang up and don't pick up the call. And don't be afraid to tell us what's going on. We're not going to think anything different of you. Again, I would much rather have that conversation with you at the teller window or in my office than to have to talk to you later.
So for the security passcode portion, did you touch on that? No. So at TLC, we have the option to add a passcode to your account. So if you were to call in and talk to the call center or you were to visit a branch, we would ask you what your passcode is as opposed to any other verifying information. So some things that are found that are public, some things that can be found on your credit report if somebody does have access to that information is your social security number. One of the verifying questions will ask you if you are calling in and don't have a code word, what is the last 4 digits of your social? Well, if it's a scammer that has access to that information, they know it. Your code word's not on any type of document or any type of identifying information other than our TLC systems. So if you're one of our members, come in, add a code word. That's what we'll ask you instead. Or if you're not a TLC member, ask your financial institution if they have anything similar. So it's always good to identify yourself in a different way.
And when I said, I think I misspoke, when I said the passcode, I was talking about the multi-factor
Oh.
authentication code, so I apologize for that.
Same thing, that's okay.
A little different, but.
All right, so recognizing your risk. How available is your critical data? So your public data, how available do people know what your prior address was? Where your prior employer was? Things like that. Your social media or online presence. This is a big one I like to touch on because a lot of people don't realize the information they're giving away when they're doing some of those fun surveys online. One of the ones I tend to see, and I wrote it down. One of the ones I tend to see is, what is your ELF name? And it'll have you put 2 words together. The color shirt you're wearing, and the street you grew, or your dog's name. We'll just say your dog's name. So mine would be Purple Echo. That's my fun elf name because Christmas is coming. Another one is your new name, just another fun one, is the street you grew up on. And then it'll give you a list of ages, and then you pick a word that's next to your age. Well, now you've given away your prior address, and you've given away the year you were born. So those are 2 pieces of identifying information. The other thing that I started thinking about, that's my daughter in the back. Hi, Haley. The other thing I started thinking about when my daughter was in school is I'm so proud she was a cheerleader in high school. I post her cheer photos. I just told the entire world what school my daughter goes to. And I'd always post Haley cheering. Now I told them her name. So those are things that as a parent I never thought about until I got into the position I'm in, is we're so proud of our kids, our grandkids, our pets. How many people, don't raise your hands, but how many people use your pet's name as a password? A lot of people. So if I post that it's Echo's birthday, you now know my pet's name, which could be one of my passwords. So these are some things that I really started thinking of when I got into my position, is what are we giving away that we don't realize we're giving away? If you have social media, make it private. Make it so only your friends can see your stuff. Have a very small group of friends on your friends list, people that you truly know, because you never know if it's an AI, right? Open credit, and I'm going to let Lori take this one because she explains it really well.
So if you have credit cards, I know your credit score is based on the number of credit lines that you have, how long that you've had them, what kind of balances you're carrying on credit cards and loans. If you have credit cards that you're not using, you haven't used them in several years, and the credit card company hasn't closed them out for non-use, you really need to think about maybe getting rid of those, because it's an opportunity for someone to access it and run that line of credit up. So if you have someone that has stolen your identity and they gain access to it, you have a $10,000, $15,000 line on your Visa or your MasterCard or whatever, they can charge on those if they get enough information. So you really want to be careful with those lines. Monitor if you're not going to close them, some type of credit monitoring or pulling your credit report to see and make sure that what is on there is accurate is very important.
To piggyback on that, you can also freeze your credit. If you don't plan on applying for any type of lending in the near future, you can always visit the credit bureaus and freeze your credit. That will stop any new credit pulls from occurring and will notify you if anybody does try to pull. You can unfreeze it whenever you'd like. You just have to notify that company again, and they give you a temporary lift on your freeze. So for instance, we pull credit when we establish membership at TLC, and it's come back before that so-and-so's credit is frozen. All they had to do was talk to TransUnion, give it a 24-hour lift. We were able to open the account. They freeze it right back down.
If you look in the back of your books, the 3 credit bureaus, TransUnion, Experian, and Equifax, their email address and it's in the yellow,
The big fraud.
the identity theft book, sorry. It has their contact information, it has both their phone number and their email address.
Involvement in breaches.
So what we found that, everybody's like, well, how do they get my information? I know that my husband and I were part of the Blue Cross Blue Shield breach. We both received letters that stated that they had our information. And what we've found, or what we've learned over time, is that these people that have breached these systems, they will pull that information, and if it's medical, they've got everything that they could ever want. They will hold on to it for a little while. They don't necessarily act on it right away. So I may have been breached 5 years ago, and all of a sudden I'm having issues with credit lines being opened or something like that. What they do with that list is they'll hold on to it, and then they go to a place they call the dark web. And on the dark web, they will sell those files for, I don't know how much. Leslie, I think, has some numbers that she can give to you, but they sell them for cash, and then they move on to the next breach and the next victims. So it's really important to stay on top of what is happening with your credit file.
What's really fun when they sell it is they'll pull your credit for the person they're selling it to, so they can let them know exactly what your credit score is, so they can see their approval rate or their odds for being approved. Good credit I've seen go upwards of $500, so they're making $500 just on one person, that then that scammer can make thousands on, depending on what your credit score is.
And just a side note, I recently spoke with someone that had a credit pull that they didn't have done. So it was someone that had all of their information, and they applied for something, credit card, loan, whatever. And they immediately called us because they had credit alert set up. So the minute that their credit report pulled, they had a monitoring company that sent them an email and said, your credit has been pulled. This person knew enough to call back to the credit monitoring company and say, hey, did you just send me an email? And they said, yes, we did. So if you have the ability to have credit monitoring, it's a good idea. Yes?
Okay, you're talking about the breaches. I have had an equity fund breach, I've had my insurance company breach, and a credit card. How do you cover all of that?
It's a good question. So most of those companies will offer you credit monitoring. They usually will send out a letter and say your information was possibly compromised, and they will then give you
1 year.
Yeah, 1 year. So after that, there are a lot of companies that, as a courtesy on your credit card, they will give you they'll give you credit, or they'll give you like free credit updates on a monthly basis. You can also go to annualcreditreport.com, and you can pull a free credit report. I believe when COVID hit, it was like weekly or whatever. You can go out and you can get free credit reports from TransUnion, Equifax, and Experian. So you can monitor in that manner. If you have something, I know that Credit Karma is, and we're not endorsing any of these companies, so you guys do whatever works for you, but I know Credit Karma does have something that will alert you if your credit's been pulled. Good question, though.
Right.
Yeah.
One thing that might not be a big deal, but it's very important at the end of the day. So that
Could you
don't
speak
lose
up,
your-
please?
Pardon me?
Could you speak up,
Oh,
please?
sure. One thing you can do to keep your personal information hanging out to dry on the internet is, and I tell people this, have not, make sure you log out of any site that you're logged into.
Yeah. So one of his pieces of advice is log out of any site that you've logged into on the internet to keep your personal information safe.
And to kind of piggyback on what you're saying, never allow your browser to save your password.
Absolutely.
Or your card. They offer
Yeah.
that now.
Yeah.
So the first thing we always ask is, when trying to think about somebody who's contacted you, did you originate the contact? Does it make sense that they're calling you? Do you know why they're calling you? Were you expecting it? Is the offer too good to be true? So this is a fun one that we're running into right now with young adults, is they're being paid on social media. Haley actually just got one a few weeks ago on Instagram, it's a social media site. They offered to send her money to use her profile picture as a painting. They said she's so beautiful, which I agree she is, that they wanted to paint her and they were going to pay her for the use of her image. Doesn't make sense. Who's this person? Why are you contacting me? This happens a lot, and unfortunately our young adults are falling for it, so please warn anybody you know. What's happening is they'll email them or mail them a check, and then our members will mobile deposit it. So they'll just take a picture with their phone and put it right in their bank account, and it's a fraudulent check. However, the next thing that they ask is, oh, I paid you too much. Can you send X amount of dollars back? Guess what they're doing? Sending it out using Zelle, and I can't get it back for them because they initiated the payment. So if it's too good to be true, it generally is. That dog on Facebook Marketplace really isn't a good buy, even though it's very cheap. Go to a reputable, place to buy your animal, things like that. Does the offer or information make sense, or is it logical? So that's kind of the same thing. Trust your gut. Does it make sense what they're asking you, or make sense why they're asking you this? Is there a threat or scare tactic being used? Well, we touched on this. The first thing they're going to do is induce panic. They're going to make it so that your logical brain steps out for a few minutes. We've actually, unfortunately, had a gentleman run into our branch in slippers and a bathrobe because the police were on the way. He was in a panic because they had induced so much panic in him that he needed to come in and make that wire transfer right now. Contact your financial institution or local law enforcement if you're unsure of the request or offer, because we're here to help. Even if you're not my member, call me. I would love to talk it out with you because I hate when people get taken advantage of. And then trust your instincts, trust your gut. Go with that first thought in your head, use that logical brain.
And we can't stress enough, just stop and call us. We love to get those phone calls.
All right, so I touched a little bit on this with my fun elf game, but some of the social engineering and personal contact information that can be out there is past information or past addresses, financial account numbers, children's names, family background, your pets' names, schools attended, special interests, or special dates like your birthday or anniversary. So I mentioned that some people use their pets as their passwords. Some people use their pets and their birthday as their passwords. So these are things you're going to want to keep in the back of your mind when you're doing these social posts or anything like that is, like I said, what are you putting out there? A lot of this stuff is going to be used as identifying information. And a lot of it can be found on credit reports and things like that. So if you haven't lived at your address for 2 years, I'm going to ask you what your previous address was. Your children's names, a lot of people use that as passwords. So just keep all this in mind when you're posting or talking or doing whatever. In our Dundee session, there was a lady who brought up a really good point. She said that she has a friend who, when she posts about her daughter, will only use the daughter's first initial. And say that the daughter was in a play for school. It would say, M did a great job in her play today. Grandma would come on and say, doesn't Marcy look so cute? She just gave away the daughter's name. So just be cognizant of that as well. If you know or notice that somebody's trying to protect their children or protect something, don't blow it for them.
So some of the things that are considered a gold mine for these scammers are your old social security cards. You need to keep those secure. I don't recommend that you carry them with you. Mine is in my safe deposit box. I know that's probably not real convenient, but I saw what my husband went through when he lost his wallet one time, and I had to scold him very strongly. The old Medicare cards, used to have your social security number on there instead of a number. They have gotten wiser and have taken that away, so your new ones are much better. Birth certificates and passports. Any of your permits to carry or concealed weapon will have information on them. Identification cards that might have your social security number or any other personal information, credit card statements, tax returns. We're getting into tax season here shortly, and that over the years has had some increased fraud. You'll go to file your taxes and you'll get a notice from the IRS that those taxes have already been filed. It is a nightmare to go through and jump through all the hoops that you have to jump through in order to get that cleared up. Unfortunately, you're the one that has to prove it, not the scammer. Things that you can do to protect your identity: be very vigilant in protecting that information. There's 6 different types of personal information: your name, address, social security number, telephone number, your mother's maiden name, and employment information. Your mother's maiden name used to be a real popular way to identify who you were. It's become a very popular thing for the scammers because they know that information. So just try to protect what your mom's maiden name was. Don't share that out in the public.
I mentioned that we use code words, so you have the ability to put a code word on your account at TLC, and I said talk to your other financial institutions to see if they do the same. Your mother's maiden name has never checked anything. Like, you don't check that. You can tell me whatever it is. So if your financial institution doesn't allow or doesn't have the ability to allow a code word, make up a mother's maiden last name. But remember what you made it, because that can be your code word.
In addition to doing a code word, you can do PIN too, so it doesn't just have to be a word.
So Lori had mentioned that they're also in the identity theft booklet, but here are the credit union, or the 3 credit bureaus: Experian, TransUnion, and Equifax. Now when you're pulling your credit report, pull all 3, because not every company reports to all 3. We only report to TransUnion. So pull all 3, that way you can take a peek on what the differences are and if that makes sense to you. And then we also gave you the Federal Trade Commission's phone number and website on there.
Federal Trade Commission has a lot of great information, not only about identity theft, but it also will give you some of the recent scams. The books that you have in there, the cream-colored yellowish books that you have, come from their site, and so does the other 2 materials. So if you have something that you're curious about, you can jump on their site and take a look at it.
All right. Yes?
We've been contacted 3 times from scammers recently. And one of the things, of course, we did the spoofing. It came up as TLC Credit Union. And a lot of the personal information that they had on us, I found out when I came to your office that it was public information. Is there some time tonight that you would be able to share with us what public information they can actually get on us? Because I was really surprised.
Google your name.
Okay.
You'll be surprised.
Okay.
There's all kinds of websites out there that will list that information and your past addresses, which is one of the gold mines. It'll list your relatives, it'll list your social media profiles. It's crazy what's out there. And I'm not sure, I wish I knew more. I don't know if you can go to those individual websites and ask to be removed, but people can always pay to get that information anyways.
I can't think of what the program is, but you can go out and you can have that information removed, but I've done that before, and then I go back out not much longer and it's there again. That's when they talk about and I don't know, you're going to talk about the grandparent scam.
Go ahead.
So I have preached enough to my mother-in-law about not giving information over the phone. She's older, and so she hears me on my rants about these scammers and how much I despise them. And she's been contacted twice. The first time they called, and at the time my son was living in Texas, and they said, "Grandma, I'm in trouble. I need you to send me some money." And so she's like, "Well, which one of my grands is this?" Well, they couldn't answer it, so they hung up. So then they contacted her again, and they said, Graham, it's Ben. And she goes, okay, well, what's your middle name, Ben? And so they couldn't answer that information, so I was really proud of her for doing that. But a lot of times they will just call and they'll say, Grandma, it's your favorite granddaughter. And then you'll say, oh, Shannon or Leslie, you've given them the name. Some of this information they're gleaning from what we were talking about before, it's public information, and then they just hope that they're gonna catch you at a bad time where you're really not thinking. A lot of times they will say that it may not even be from your grandchild, they'll just call and say, we are so-and-so with whatever police department, your child or your grandchild has been in a serious accident, it's a fatality, or they've injured someone really badly and we've got them in jail and they need bail money now. And we need you to send it to us. So just don't panic. Come in and see us. We will vet it out and make sure that it's not anything typically, I've never known it to be a legitimate thing, so we don't want you to lose your money.
Yes.
Just to, excuse me, emphasize there too with AI, they're replicating voices. So
Absolutely.
if you have a granddaughter,
Yes.
you know, they can actually get voice tracks from her, put it together so that when you get the call, it will sound exactly like that granddaughter. And you'll swear she's in trouble, I need help, you gotta send help right away. Unfortunately, we just live in a world where you cannot assume that that is really the voice of your granddaughter. It's terrible to think that we're there with this technology, but that's unfortunately where we are today.
Did everyone hear what he said?
One of our VPs came to the Dundee seminar or session with us, and she knows a family personally that this happened to, and they actually met in Toledo and handed off cash. Her suggestion is don't just put a code word on your financial accounts, have a family code word. Everybody knows that this is our family code word, so when Johnny calls because he's in trouble, he'll know what that is. So yeah, same thing. If they don't know what that code word is and they can't answer it, it's probably not legitimate. Anyone else?
Good point. Thank you for that.
I have a suggestion.
Yeah.
When you go through the drive-through, could we not say our code words through the drive-through? Could we like write it out
Sure.
more private?
Yes, absolutely.
Yes. So I can do, yes.
And, you know, it's an old adage, for us creating passwords,
Yeah,
never ever use anything in your password that can be traced back to you as a family.
absolutely. Make it as non-personal as you can.
And-
Yeah.
And make it complex. We're talking passwords for those of you that didn't hear what he said.
All right. So I'm going to touch a little bit on fake check scams. Checks have become a target again for these scammers. So some of the fake check scams are for mystery shopping. You're contacted by a company, they want you to go to Walmart and see if you can do this for them. They're going to send you money to buy whatever they've asked you to buy. Well, they don't know how much it's going to cost, so I need you to send, whatever's left over back. Generally, that's a fake check. Personal assistance. And I'm going to kind of broaden this a little bit. Any job, this has been happening too. We have a lot of people who are falling for job scams on Indeed, which is a very legitimate website. We put our openings up there as well. They're applying for these jobs. They're being contacted by the business owner, and they're being sent a check to buy any supply that they need to start this job. Get yourself a laptop, get yourself a car, get yourself whatever office supplies you need so you can work from home for my company. They're getting the check, they're depositing it, they're spending the money, the check bounces. They're now out those funds. Car wrap decals. This has been around forever. I can remember seeing this when I was a teenager. A company is offering to pay you to advertise for them. They'll send you a check, tell you to go visit a shop to get your car wrapped in their logos. You do it, you're advertising, the check bounces. Claiming prizes. So we see this a lot, that you won a sweepstakes, but unfortunately you need to pay to get your money. You need to pay the taxes, you need to pay shipping and handling, things like that. So if you won, why are you needing to pay somebody anything, right? And then overpayment. I touched on this a little bit earlier. So they're sending you money. Oh, I accidentally sent you too much. I sent you 5,000 instead of the 500 I was supposed to. Can you send me that back? Our members are honest, they're sending it back. Check bounces, they're out that money. So one thing that we're seeing is hitting really hard is stolen mail. Banks issued roughly 680,000 reports of check fraud to the Financial Crimes Enforcement Network, we call it FinCEN, last year. That's up 350,000 since 2021. Meanwhile, the U.S. Postal Inspection Service reports that roughly 3,000 complaints of mail theft happened in 2021, which is more than double the prior year. So you can see here, we have this nice gentleman or lady advertising all of this mail for sale on the dark web that Lori mentioned earlier. They put their phone here so you can see the date on when this mail was acquired. You can see here that another nice individual has opened the mail for you. These are all checks that they're advertising for sale on the dark web. How are they obtaining all of this? Well, of course, they're using a key. So these keys are also for sale on the dark web. And they go anywhere from, I wrote it down, anywhere from $1,500 to about $5,000 per set of keys. And just for fun, they'll also throw in our mailman's uniform here. So you can see our nice scammer here has obtained one of these keys and a uniform. He's pulling mail out of one of the USPS postal boxes. Nobody's gonna question him because he's got the uniform, right? So what they're finding is that when they're doing an audit of all of the keys throughout the country, a lot of them are missing and aren't accounted for. This unfortunately isn't the only way that they're obtaining the mail. They're also robbing U.S. postal workers, usually at gunpoint. What they do once they obtain this stack of checks is they will use some type of chemical to wash away the ink. Usually what they use is acetone. So they'll just fill this little bowl with acetone, let the check soak for a little bit, washes right away. What I've seen them for sale for is it's usually about $175 for a personal check and about $250 for a business check. And it averages out to be about 2,000 checks per week that are reported as lost or stolen. In 2022, check fraud saw an increase of 84% from the prior year. So this really ramped up around COVID time because everyone was getting stimulus money. Everyone was paying taxes and everyone was home getting all kinds of money in. So it's when the scammers really ramped this back up. The other thing that they're doing is cooking checks. Now how that works is they're scanning them into a computer, and instead of going through the process of washing where they could potentially damage the check, they're using computer software to just change the payee and the amount. These are virtually going undetected because of things like mobile deposit. Because we never physically at a financial institution have to touch a check for the money to be deposited into someone's account. They look good. They look really, really good. We talked to a law enforcement officer earlier this week that was talking to us about a stolen business check. And he said, had you not told me, I wouldn't have known because it looks that good. So, what we're suggesting, don't use the blue mailboxes at the curb. Take your mail into the post office if you're still mailing checks. If you're comfortable with it, pay electronically. go directly to the website and pay electronically. That's gonna prevent a lot of this, because once they have a check, they have your account and routing number and they can go crazy. You know, they have access to anything you have in there. Does anybody have any questions? Yes?
I lost a check, or I mailed out a check back in August to
Yeah.
a company. I was buying something. They claimed they never received the money, so they couldn't order or send me the material they ordered. So the check is kind of like somewhere there. Now, I thought about putting a stop payment on it, but then how much does it cost to put a stop payment on it?
Yeah, so that depends on the institution. You'd have to decide which way you'd want to go. Do you want to take the chance that it isn't innocent, it just slipped somewhere and is never going to be found? Or do you want to pay that small stop payment fee to protect whatever else is in your account? You know, so it's a decision you'd have to make yourself. I personally would put the stop on because that's how it scares me. You know, working where I work and what I see all the time, I wouldn't want my check up there.
What was the question?
Yeah, she said that she mailed a check back in August and the company never received it. She wasn't sure if she should put a stop on it and pay the fee or let it ride. Yes?
Would it be, safer to, let's say if you were sending a $50 check, instead of getting the check, to get a money order out of your account?
Yes.
And
Absolutely.
Your information is not on that money order, I assume, right?
Correct.
So, okay.
Yep. Yep, so she said instead of sending a personal check, is it safer to get a money order from your institution or wherever you can obtain a money order? Absolutely. And plus it's out of your account right away. You don't have to carry that balance forward either. Yes?
Yeah, on the check washing, I recently heard about it.
Yeah.
And I have 2 very large checks that I write. I no longer put them in the blue box. I went in and the lady at the post office said, why are you giving this to me? And I said, so you can mail it.
Yeah?
And then on my rent, and everybody has rent or mortgage, it's the same thing. Those are not small amounts. They have a drop box, not anymore for me.
Sure.
Hand
And it directly to them. Yeah? Yeah. You know, I said that we're always one step behind. The minute that we solve this problem and they see that they're not getting as much benefit from it anymore, they're gonna go to another tactic and you'll see them again next year. You know, so we're always one step behind, but you're absolutely right. Take it in, hand it in person, you know, try to mitigate as much as you can away from that.
The other thing about mail, and I don't know how many people buy from a large local grocery store here. They send out an ad and it had a QR code. Don't use the QR codes. I clicked on one and it said, need your information. I called my bank and they said,
Yeah.
I have had 4 credit cards in the last 6 weeks because people keep trying to scam me. And I said, no, close it down.
Yeah.
And the thing is, you have to change so much information every time.
Yeah.
And there's a word that comes in there that I can't use, but I'm so tired of it.
Yeah, it's a lot of work to protect yourself and, you know, recover from any type of fraud like that. You're absolutely right.
It causes severe anxiety.
Absolutely. And I had a person come up to me after Dundee and she goes, you just scared me to death. That's not my intention. My intention is to educate. Yes, ma'am.
How safe are drop boxes to different businesses? Consumers Energy,
Yeah.
Citizens Gas.
My honest opinion, I don't think they're very safe because who knows what's happening at night? Who knows how often, if you're dropping it in at 6 o'clock at night, when are they picking it up? You know, what kind of lock mechanism is on there? If they're able to find a way to get into USPS mailboxes, you know, how long until they find a way to bust into that? I lived in a small town, I came from Ohio, and I lived in a small town where our electric company had something similar. They actually had an old USPS mailbox that they put payments in. And I would never use it, and I know a lot of people wouldn't use it because it was in a dark alley, and they didn't have the best reputation for collecting it in a timely manner. So I'd always go in, unfortunately, take that extra step to go in.
We all need exercise.
Anyone else? Yes.
One point, one question.
Sure.
The point on the check fraud with washing, I've heard that gel pens
Yes.
are more difficult to eradicate, so using a gel pen might help.
Yep,
And so that is true?
that's true.
Okay, and the other question I have is with regards to charitable organizations. I think a lot of people make out checks, and you send it. Have you had heard any cases where those checks are being intercepted, or even the personnel of their staff are taking advantage of that and using the checks? Have you had any cases of fraud that you're aware of, at least today?
In the 3 years I've been at TLC, I've heard it once. That they made it a recurring donation instead of a one-time. That's the only thing I've heard about it, though.
Okay, but not where the check has been stolen, per se.
Not yet.
But you run the risk.
You run the risk.
Anytime
Yeah.
you send a check.
Absolutely.
Okay, thank you.
So in the slide, we give you some additional resources. We give you the FTC website, again, the identitytheft.gov. We give you those credit monitoring, or the credit bureaus again. Lori had mentioned the annual credit report. I believe that they are giving them away weekly still, instead of just annually. And then we cited some of my sources for some of the information I provided. I do want to share the websites and what they look like with you. So here is the FTC website. So just to give you an idea, it looks just like your booklet, because I just want to make sure that you're going to the proper place. One thing that we've noticed is that if you're Googling, even if you're Googling a phone number, don't always go with the first one you find. Make sure that you're on the legitimate website. You're going to see a little lockup here, or the website looks exactly how you expect it to look. The colors look right, the font looks right. There's no misspelled words, things like that. We've had a lot of people who have said, oh, I have Amazon charges. I have an Amazon account, but I don't know what this is. So we'll send them to Amazon to find out what it is. They'll Google Amazon's phone number and unfortunately talk to a scammer. So they're finding ways to put their information first in that search result instead of, they're paying. I don't know how they do it. I don't know, I'm not a scammer. But they're finding a way to put their information first in that list of results. And, unfortunately, people are falling for it. So this is what the identitytheft.gov website looks like. Another thing that people have asked for is the do not call registry to get those calls to stop. You're more than welcome to try. I don't think it works the greatest, but absolutely put your number on there. It's always worth a shot. So it's the donotcall.gov. And then we had talked about passwords earlier. So like Lori said, we're not, telling you to use this. We're not promoting it. This is just what we use. So this is called LastPass. This will give you a way to generate those very difficult to guess passwords, but also gives you a place to store them rather than your web browser. So what's great about LastPass is it does have an integration with most web browsers, where it would be right up here in your top bar. So once you log in with a master password, you can get your list. So if you click on Vault, it's going to show every single website I have saved. Am I okay to click Vault? This is Lillian, so I just needed to make sure. So it's going to show everything that Lillian has. Now it won't show her password unless I ask it to show her password, but you can see here that she has everything that she visits on a normal, regular basis. She has it saved so she doesn't have to memorize them. It'll also help you create those passwords. When I go to a brand new website, it'll pop something up and it'll help me generate it. So it does have a master password that you're not going to want to repeat in any other password you use because that's how you're going to log in. And it will log you out when you close your browser, which is what we're looking for. We don't want you to stay logged in. We want you to have to remember one master password and let it help you the rest of the way.
What is the name of that piece?
LastPass.
Is that .com?
.com. Last, just to give you an idea of what the logo looks like, the word last is black, pass is red. So this is what IT has deemed appropriate for us to use and safe for us to use. This is what we use at TLC. Does anyone have any questions about this?
Does that cost anything?
There may be a fee, I'm not really sure, I'm sorry. All right, and that's all we have. Does anyone have any final questions, anything they want to talk through? No. In your folder, there is a survey. I think it's behind the presentation. If you just could take a moment to fill it out so we know if we're doing well, we're presenting how we need to. And you can just leave it on the table and we'll gather them when you're done. Yes?
Do you have another seminar coming up?
We do. We actually just got invited to Onstead. We're going to be at the Onstead Senior Center.
When is that?
It's not open to the public.
Oh, it's not open to the
It's
public?
not, unfortunately.
When do you plan on having another public forum like this?
Next year, right? Next year. So that we do them annually. Yeah. If you have specific questions or have someone that has questions,
Well, we're at the end of the year.
My parents,
We- we did record tonight.
Will that be on your website then?
Yes.
In the Learning Center.
In the Learning Center, Lillian said. Yes.
Can you generally refresh our memories with regards to what our obligations are in terms of our debit card or credit card is stolen or misused in terms of our financial liability as TLC members?
Yeah, so there's a time frame that you need to report any type of transaction. Is it 60 days from statement date? So 60 days from statement date, you need to report it as, a fraudulent charge. Then we do our investigation. I work very closely with our card services department. Some things that they're going to ask is, do you have an established relationship with this particular vendor? So say it's Amazon. Do you have an Amazon account? We're going to have you approach the vendor first. Reason being, we have one shot to dispute a transaction. If they tell us no, we lose all dispute rights. So we're going to want you to try to, get with Amazon, and we need in writing that Amazon says, no, this is not his legitimate charge. It does not appear on his account that he has with us and has agreed to use. Same thing with credit. You still have that 60 days. So as I was saying earlier, credit, you're not required to pay your bill. Debit card, it's automatically coming out. Some charges will give you that provisional credit for while we're doing the dispute investigation, but you're going to always want to tell us as quickly as you can so we can start that process.
Credit cards is definitely the better
Absolutely.
avenue versus debit cards.
Absolutely. Yeah, because they would refund any interest that you accrued because of this charge, if interest is charged, if it's between a payment cycle, things like that.
Thank you.
Any other questions? All right, I think we do still have some snacks out there. If you want to stop and grab another sandwich or some more cookies or a water, please feel free.
Thank you guys all for coming out. You've been great, and the interaction that we've had is good. It helps us as well as everyone else in attendance. So safe travels on your way home.